Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Grace Holland, and today we're talking about mining, not of coal or gold, but of a metal called lithium. It's used in a lot of green technology, and a Charlotte-based company wants to mine it in the western part of our state. WRAL climate change reporter Liz McLaughlin joins us and has been following this story. Liz, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, what is lithium for our viewers who don't know, and how can it be used?
So it's a soft, silvery metal, and it gives batteries more life and allows them to hold a longer charge. So it really emerged as this dominant battery chemistry because of its performance, and it's also very lightweight. A lithium-ion battery is likely powering the device you're using right now to listen to this podcast, and the demand has just surged, in part because of clean energy timelines from climate change goals, including more battery storage for things like solar and wind in the clean energy transition, and getting more electric vehicles on the road.
And how common is lithium as a resource in our state?
So the Charlotte region actually has a lot of prominence in this area, and it's kind of the result of a combination of geology and history. There's this mile-wide band of minerals, and it's known as the Carolina Tin Spodumene Belt. It runs from Lincoln through Gaston County to Kings Mountain, all along the South Carolina border. Spodumene is this rocky mineral. It contains lithium. And mining companies developed hard rock mining to extract it, which could then be refined. So this mine in particular in Kings Mountain was started in the 1930s by a predecessor of Albemarle, and actually was used, the lithium-6 was used in the Manhattan Project for the first hydrogen bomb.
Wow, that's quite a history that this mine has. So who is this company? You mentioned the name Albemarle. So who are they? We know they're Charlotte-based. What else can you tell us about them?
Sure. So Albemarle is based in Charlotte, but it's actually a global lithium company and the largest producer in the U.S. It has another mine in Silver Peak, Nevada, and that's the only other lithium mine that's currently operating in the U.S. Albemarle has a few other mines around the world, including in Argentina, but those are all brine deposits, including that one in Nevada. So basically the reason that Kings Mountain was sort of shut down was because these brine deposits became a much easier way to get the lithium out of it. It's in salt water, and essentially you take steps to evaporate out the water so the lithium gets more and more concentrated, and it's just much cheaper than trying to get it out of that rock. So supply is an issue that we're just trying to get in front of as a country, as an industry. The International Energy Agency, predicts that this is going to be a 40% increase in demand by 2040. So that's a big push for companies like Albemarle to try to venture into expanding their mine footprint.
And you visited this mine in particular. So what stood out to you when you visited there? What can you tell us about it?
So like I kind of touched on earlier, it was a mine before. This isn't creating a new mine. It closed in about 1988. And that's just because, again, those cheaper sources of lithium were found. But since we've seen this demand skyrocket, the price of lithium skyrocket, so it became a more economically viable resource to try to tap into. Visiting the mine, when you see it, I don't know what I pictured, maybe just something kind of ugly and rocky and gross, but it looks like this. It looks like a lake. It looks like this kind of beautiful rocky cliff because the pit, about 160 feet, 63 feet deep, has filled with rainwater. So it's just kind of this pit full of water with lots of greenery on the outside, and it's very clear, like clean water, because it's just collected rainwater. And since 1988, all these fish and plants have sort of made this area home over this resource. And there's actually a trail that kind of goes around, part of a trail system that goes around this. So there has been some concern from community members, about potentially moving this into a usable mine. Again, that recreation area would be lost, but they're going to empty it in the coming months. So that's already, the trajectory has started. Albemarle kind of announced the intention to try to reopen this mine last year, and probably within the next 2 months, they're going to be emptying it. It's 1.8 billion gallons of rainwater they have to get out of there. So that's going to be quite a project and take maybe 18 months on its own. They're doing feasibility assessments right now, too, to just assess the environmental impact, community outreach to make sure that it's, that there's a solution that fits with the community that lives right there. and it could be operational as soon as the end of 2026.
Wow, that is a pretty quick timeline. One question I have with that is you mentioned that there's been more efficient ways to get the lithium that this company has done in other areas. Are they able to sort of transition this mine to being those newer ways of doing it?
So it's actually just the way that the lithium is deposited. So it's not
Okay.
necessarily a different method, but it's a different, lithium is in this rock. And you can see it actually layered in the side when you're at the mine looking up at the cliffside. You can see these layers. It's called pegmatite deposit. And so it's just a harder process to get the lithium out of there as opposed to when it's in salt water.
Okay, gotcha. All right, Liz. Well, let's take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, and we're back. So, Liz, what would be the economic impact of reopening this lithium mine, given how much it looks like this is going to grow over the next decade?
And again, yeah, it's just more lucrative now. And we're really looking at a supply crisis, perhaps. There is such a demand for lithium, and resource independence is also another big incentive here. The mine reopening project is actually getting $90 million, a critical minerals grant from the U.S. Department of Defense, because there's a goal on a federal level to try to have more of these resources, and not just lithium, cobalt, and other things as well that we're going to need just in the clean energy transition, in, again, just laptops, electronics, the technological functioning of our society. There's a big push to try to have more of that domestically sourced. Right now, China is responsible for about 70% of lithium-ion battery production in the world. So that's a big push here. And just the mine in Kings Mountain could produce enough raw materials to yield about 50,000 metric tons of processed lithium each year. So that's enough to supply batteries for 1.2 million electric vehicles each year.
And with that much lithium being produced, do we know how many jobs this could potentially create?
You know, it's been a big growth already. In the Charlotte and Kings Mountain region, I think Albemarle has about 1,100 employees. That's up 85% just over the last 2 years.
Wow.
So it's already growing. That's before the opening of the mine. And they say they plan to hire 700 more people in just the coming year. And that's all before the mine is even opened and feasibility projects are still underway. So it could have a big, economic impact just here in the state too.
And what is the process from mining this lithium, particularly since it is this older method, from extracting it until it ends up being used in a cell phone or something else?
Yeah, so this pegmatite contains spodumene, and it is, we looked at core samples and were able to touch them at the mine. And it's really interesting. She compared it to a chocolate chip cookie. And basically, they have to get the dough out, that's the spodumene, and then they have to get the chocolate chips out, the lithium. So that involves quite a process. There'll be some blasting. And so that's part of the environmental assessment to see about the dust or noise and the impact there. Drilling, hauling. So basically, just to chunk this stuff up into a small enough pieces to haul it away, and then it's processed to be able to extract that, and that includes high temps. So this is part of the little algorithm when we're looking at climate change. The clean energy transition is important. Electric vehicles, decarbonizing transportation is important, but what is the impact of that process of extracting it? Because about 40% of the impact there of the greenhouse gas emissions of getting lithium is just from the mining process alone. It is still worth it. I spoke with a global supply chain professor at Northwestern University who said, we dug into the numbers, and the lifetime use of an electric vehicle over a gas vehicle is worth getting the lithium out. But it is something to consider. And, still having that, we need this resource, but how can we do it in a way that's most efficient, most environmentally friendly, gets the most resource with the least economic impact?
Right. And that sounds like something that folks who live around there are really concerned about, given that, like you said, it's this really nice nature area right now, but it's not probably going to look like that for much longer.
Yeah. And again, it's just part of the trail that goes near it. I mean, It's still owned, it's not like people are going out there with boats and going fishing, right? So it's not, we're not losing a park to this. It wasn't, a recreational area before, but it's just very beautiful. And like I said, part of the trail would be disrupted if this reopened as a mine. But obviously there are other environmental concerns, groundwater impacts, dust, noise, as I mentioned. And they really are, I have to say, I was really impressed with the company's ability to, they started this a long time ago and even doing these tours. So not just media, if you wanted to go check out the lithium mine next time you're in Charlotte, a few days a week, they take people out there. So, and they'll answer questions, have a convo about it, show you the footprint of the mine and how it's going to change, which should be deeper, for instance, not necessarily wider. So not really taking up a bigger footprint than it does now. There's already a processing plant on site. And, that might get a little bigger, but they really are taking steps. And in the U.S., it's a little bit more of a concern as far as economic impact in other countries, because South America is such a lucrative source and just doesn't, quite frankly, have the same protections that we do here. There are a lot of regulations to make sure that the impacts are, as low as they can be. But dust, noise, groundwater contamination are the main concerns.
And what are the next steps for lithium mining's future in our state?
So actually, it's not just Albemarle. There is another in the same area, Piedmont Lithium, which is a Belmont-based company, is also looking in the permitting process right now to reopen a mine there as well. So it's not just Albemarle. So that might be on a sooner trajectory. Again, the first step, they're going to be draining the water out of this. That's going to be quite a hefty process. Continuing those environmental feasibility assessments and going through the permitting process will be an ordeal. But it's a 10-year permit. If and when they do get that they'll have to renew every 10 years, and then just doing the construction preparation for the actual extraction. So again, I think the earliest that it could be operational would be late 2026.
All right. Well, Liz, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for listening to the WRAL Daily Download. You can find more podcasts from WRAL News at WRAL.com. Search podcast from sports to true crime. There are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. Thanks for listening.